What's up, everyone? Welcome to Bill Bronze and Dragons. I'm your host, Bill Bron Bafflestone. As a reminder, this is formerly Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition Power Gamers Tactics Room. I'm undergoing a name change right now to Bill Bronze and Dragons, so don't be confused if this is the first time that you've heard about this. So today we're having another episode of my Metagaming series. Today talking about leadership. And so I'm the sort that when I wax philosophical, I like to set up some context. So a little bit of context as to why I'm thinking about this. I am currently about to start a new campaign for which on Tuesday I have a session 0 scheduled. And so I am just brainstorming to think about questions that I want to get figured out during our session 0. And a question occurred to me that I realized that I simply cannot ask in this day and age, even though this was something that was an extremely obvious question that, 20, 30 years ago in my 1st and 2nd edition campaigns, we would always figure out. This was before there was even a formal session 0, but it was a very important question that we felt like we needed to get figured out. And it's something that I don't even dare ask today based on my experiences. And before I drop the hammer on that one, I want to stretch this out just a little bit more and point out that this thing is something that is actually very important in most comic books featuring superhero teams, which I think is a fairly decent analog to Dungeons and Dragons parties. I mean, we're basically teams of superheroes, right? But also even in, classic fantasy, right? So what is one of the things that every now and then becomes of critical importance and drama and surprise and interesting new directions when it comes to the Avengers, to the Justice League, to the Legion of Superheroes, to the Fellowship of the Ring? It's who is the leader? Who is the leader of the Avengers? It's always so interesting that, okay, Captain America is stepping down. Who's going to be the new leader? Oh my God, it's Black Knight? That's weird and interesting. Oh my God, it's Captain Marvel? That's weird and interesting. Who's going to lead the Justice League? Green Arrow is the leader of the Justice League. Well, that's different. It was Batman before. That's kind of refreshing and unusual. Let's see where this goes. Dream Girl is the leader of the Legion of Superheroes? Gosh, that's a change. It was Cosmic Boy before that. Right? It's kind of a big question. Other experiences of mine that point to the importance of leadership is my military experience. I mean, the idea of people going into battle without having a leader and voting just makes no sense because in the heat of the moment, you don't have time to vote and you can't have people deciding what to do on their own. When I was in the military, a great example, when I first showed up at boot camp, they line you up into these giant companies, and then they say march. And when you don't have any training, you watch it and it's like a centipede, where like the front moves, and then, the second part starts to move, and then it just kind of starts going, and finally the last part moves, because our natural instinct is we don't start walking forward until we see the person in front of us start moving forward. But eventually, you get trained so that when they say march, everybody's left foot moves forward at the exact same moment. We trust that the person in front of us is going to move at the right time. So that's, how we're trained. And it's like the leader that calls that out. They actually choose like one of the recruits and make them what's called the RPOC. And he's the one that calls out like all of the directions, turn right, turn left, stop, back up, split, all these different maneuvers that you can do. It's so important to have a leader who can call the shots. And also in sports. I mean, in some sports, it's formal. In football, there are team captains that are voted on by the team who represent them and who lead them. And even without that formality, every locker room has locker room leaders, people that bring the team together. It's an important role. And it's curious why we avoid that these days, or at least as I perceive it, this fear of hierarchy and I guess power structures. I mean, it all kind of ties into these larger philosophical issues that are dominating the zeitgeist. And when I was coming up in Dungeons and Dragons, that is something that we always figured out. We always had a party leader. And when I look back at my role-playing game experiences in the last decade or so, I can't think of ever having this issue of who is the leader, because we never had a leader. And this isn't just in Dungeons and Dragons, but in all the other games that I played, there's no leader. And for example, in my last campaign, we did it by vote most of the time. And I am thinking that's kind of normal. Now, this is a very small sample size of my own experiences, so this is partly why I want to have this conversation and ask everyone else, do you guys actually go through a formal process of appointing a leader of the party? Please let me know. Maybe I'm all wrong about this, and maybe people still do choose leaders, but I'm getting the sense that we don't. And I kind of miss those old days. I feel like things are better when we have a leader. Now, first of all, it doesn't have to be me. I'm not a very good leader. When it comes to leadership, you want a King Arthur. And I am not a King Arthur. I'm more of a Merlin, that weirdo that, kind of can see the future and is, shunned by normal people. Arthur is like, this other guy who's more charismatic and more understanding of the needs of the group and can always find that gestalt and compromise and figure out the best path. Because frankly, doing it by vote just doesn't work. I mean, man, I look back over Bill Brian Bafflestone's campaign where we voted all the time, and man, we just made the wrong decision a lot of the time, so I'm not afraid to say it. It's not as good when you don't have a leader. And I understand that's controversial. I'm immediately thinking now to my conversation with Shandera from Treant Monk's Discord on my other channel, The Heroic Ethic, my philosophy channel, where he is an anarcho-socialist and talks a lot about worker co-ops where there's a lot of democracy and the workers are voting on decisions and stuff through democracy. And it just doesn't work. I mean, do you guys eat ice cream for dinner every night because you let your kids have a vote? And I think one great example of this that I use often in economics is what happens if you vote on where to go on vacation. Now, just for example, say you've got a family of several kids and you're trying to plan where to go on a family vacation. You put it to a vote and you ask the kids, would you rather go to Disney World or would you rather go to the beach in the Caribbean? And say you have 5 kids and 4 of them vote for, or sorry, 5 family members and 4 of them vote for going to Disney World. And 1 of them votes for going to the beach. Well, if you go up by vote, it's pretty easy, right? You go to Disney World. But a leader might very well say, no, after the vote, I rule that we go to the beach. And the reason why is because he understands intimately the needs of the party, the family, or whatever. And he understands that the 4 that voted to go to Disney World do prefer to go to Disney World, but would be also very happy to go to the beach, right? It's a very small difference in preference. But the one that prefers to go to the beach has a huge difference in preference. They would hate going to Disney World. They would be scared all the time of the giant crowds. They would just have a really bad experience that would bring down everybody else's experience. And so he says, all right, we're going to go to the beach. And overall, the family is happier because even though that wasn't the first preference of 4 of them, they are still quite happy with the beach, and the one that would have been traumatized by going to Disney World is safe. All right, so that's just an example of how leadership works and how voting doesn't work. But that's just my opinion, and I wanted to have this discussion because I'm just curious. I'm not going to bring this up in my session 0. I know we're not going to have a leader, even though I never think it should be me. I think it should be somebody else, and I'll just be like, the advisor to that leader, much like Merlin is the advisor to Arthur. But, I don't have the EQ to be a good leader. I just being honest. But I feel like we should have one. I definitely don't think voting works. So That's just my opinion, though. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm really super curious to have a discussion about this and find out what everybody else has to say. Do you have party leaders? Do you think it would be better if you had a party leader? And yeah, let's have that discussion. And regardless, thank you so much for watching. This has been Bill Bronze and Dragons. See you next time.